Good afternoon, and welcome to the 800 Credit Score Man Show. I am your host, Kevin King. He is I, and I am him, the 800 Credit Score Man himself. And once again, thank each and every one of you for coming in and listening to the 800 Credit Score Man Show. I truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you guys for hanging in there with me, for real though. Thank you so much. So look, today, what are we going to talk about today? So last week, we talked a lot about savings, and I don't even remember the name of the show, but it was something like savings to save your credit or something of that nature. But so we talked about savings last week, and I don't think I mentioned at the end really that the premise of all of that, saying that you need to save money and showing you ways and places that you can save, the premise behind that was for you to be able to protect yourself and protect your credit if something were to happen to you. So at the end of the day, the money that you saved is going to save your credit. It can save your credit, because then if something were to happen where you didn't have income coming in for whatever reason it was, then you'll be able to take those savings and make those payments on your credit cards, on your car, on your home, things of that nature, so you can protect yourself and protect your credit. You've got to prioritize what's going to be the most important for you to be able to do this. What's the most important for you? If your phone is your lifeline, like it is for a lot of us, then if push comes to shove, you want to make that payment to keep your phone on, right? You're going to need electricity. You're going to need heat. If you're in the Midwest, for sure, you're going to need heat. If you're in the Southwest, you're going to need air conditioning. So you may want to keep those kinds of things on. You've got to prioritize how you're going to do those things. And where you can save or not pay the entire payment, things of that nature. If you have a particular kind of loan where you can just make an interest payment, or you can defer a payment to the end of your loan, something of that nature, you may want to do that so you have that cash on hand to take care of the things that you absolutely have. So it was all about savings for you and being able to find a way for you to save some money for yourself. And we talked about it in a couple of different ways. We talked about it, immediate cash that you can get to, like I was just talking about, and then also long term for your retirement, for your kids' education and what have you. I didn't mention the 529 for your kids. That's a way to save for your kids as well. So I'm pretty sure every state has a 529 program where you can put money away for your children's education when they get ready to go to college. You can put money away from that too. So that's also another way to save if that's what you're saving for specifically. So you can save generally. So you can have, whatever it is you want to do. You might want to save specifically for that vacation, for that new car, for that new dress, whatever it is that you're trying to do. You can save specifically, and then you can also save generally as well. I don't think I mentioned either about how much should you be saving. So how much should you actually be saving? Is $1,000 a month? Not a month. Is $1,000 enough for you to have saved? Well, again, that's going to be specific to your situation. You listen to the gurus like Susie Orman or Dave Ramsey. They'll tell you you need 9 months, maybe even a year worth of whatever your bills are to get yourself through. To me, that seems like a whole lot. And I would hope that my skills and what I do for a living could transfer where I can get an additional job or another job if something happened to my income, be able to do so before 12 months. But you could be in an industry where it takes you 12 months to get a job. You can be in an industry that it only takes you 2 weeks to get a job. Or you can be in an industry that takes you 6 months to get a job. So you kind of gotta know your industry. You've got to know how much money you will need on a monthly basis if something were to happen. And before Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey came along talking about having 9 months to 12 months, it used to be the standard was 3 months. So if you can save up 3 months of whatever your bills are, your absolute bills are, so you can pay everything, then I think that'll be good for most people out there. Like I said, if your industry, it takes you 6 months to find another job, then maybe you want to try to save up 6 months worth. If it only takes 3 months, then 3 months. That's what you want to do. You want to get to that 3 month mark of money that you have saved so you can have that in and you can pay it out while you're looking for getting your next opportunity coming up. So I just want to recap a little bit on that whole savings portion from last week for you guys. So this week, what are we going to talk about? This week, we're going to talk about the 5 pillars of credit. You heard me, 5 pillars of credit. Now, we've talked about this before, but I think it's important for us to go back. I've called it a different name before, and I'm telling you now, I'm copywriting, I'm coining that phrase. This will become abundantly clear in the very near future why I call it the 5 pillars of credit. So we're going to talk about that today. And the reason we're, kind of going back to that is because I have a lot of new listeners. There's a lot of new listeners. Got over 100 shows, and not everybody's going to go back and binge listen to the show. So they miss some of those things. And some people have actually even heard about these things before, but they didn't get it. They don't necessarily know it backwards and forward, like the back of their hand, or appreciate what the things of these 5 pillars are. So we're going to discuss those today. We've got a good question of the day as well. So we're going to do all of those things today. So let me start with a couple of shout outs right quick. So on February the 14th, I won't tell her age, but Pamela Denson was born February the 14th. Now, she probably should have got her shout out last week. That's my sister, you guys. I didn't shout her out last week because I missed 2 previous shows and I had a whole bunch of shout outs and I did not want to shortchange her at all. But this is a mighty, mighty woman, my sister, almost like my mom. She's a little older than I am, and she took me everywhere she was when I was a little boy. And, that's my confidant. That's my sister, and I love her. And I want to say happy birthday to you, Pam Poo, is what I call her. So happy birthday, Pam Poo. I also got to give a shout out to Eva Hillman. So Eva Hillman is my aunt, and she celebrated her birthday on February the 14th as well. So you talk about 2 ladies full of love, born in love, on a love day. And I want to say happy birthday to you, Aunt Eva, as well. So let me give one more shout out before I go. Let me give a shout out to Charles Distance. Charles listens to the show often. Then sometimes he misses the show and he's got a binge listen, and he always hits me up, inboxes me or something of that nature, to let me know how it's going, offer me things to add to the show and whatnot, ask questions, all of those things. So I gotta say thank you very much for the support, Charles, and happy birthday to you, Charles Distance as well. All right, so let's get into these 5 pillars that I'm talking about today. So the 5 pillars of credit that I'm talking about are going to be what make up what your credit score is made up of. So oftentimes, and I've said it again and again, people think that your credit score is if you make enough, if you make your payments on time and you're not in too much debt, maybe they throw that in, then you have a good credit score, and they don't worry about all the little ancillary things that go into that. I'm here to tell you now that that's not the case. If you just make your payments on time and you have accounts and you pay them off and you move on to the next account or whatnot, that doesn't translate to a good credit score, doesn't translate to a perfect credit score. I'm sure somewhere out there are people that have never ever missed a payment of anything that's on their credit report at all, and they don't have a perfect credit score. I believe it's like 0.3% have a 850 or have ever had an 850 at all, and there's got to be more people out there that have always been perfect in what they do when it comes to paying their bills and whatnot. And so it doesn't necessarily just translate over to a perfect credit score, a very good credit score, by just paying your bills on time alone. So that's not the only factor that goes into your credit score, right? So of these 5 pillars, the most important, though, of course, is making your payments on time. So 35%, yes, 35% of your credit score is made up of you making your payments on time for whatever is on your credit bureau. So if that's a mortgage, if it's a car loan, if it is a student loan, if it's a credit card, whatever is on your credit report. And we all know that not everything's on your credit report. Your cell phone bill is not on your credit report. Your utility bill is not necessarily on your credit report. Your rent, for most people, is not on your credit report unless you add it onto your credit report. So all of those things that actually go onto your credit report are what we're talking about. And if you have a perfect payment history, then you'll have a 100% payment or pay on time. So that's 35% of your credit score is you actually making those payments on time. Now, on time means not 30 days late. Basically, that's what it means. So if you got a payment and it's due on the first of the month, As long as you make that payment before it's 30 days late, it's not going to be reflected on your credit report. All right. So I've told the story before about the little old lady I talked to where she thought she would have a bad credit score because she never paid anything on time. She always paid late, but she would pay 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days late. She was never 30 days late. So she had a very good credit score, and she was surprised by that because the credit scoring system is not instantaneous. So as soon as you make that payment to Chase, it might be reflected at Chase. If you're doing it online or what have you, it might be reflected at Chase, but that's not translated right then and right there to the credit bureau. That's not how it works. So the companies that report to the credit bureau, they do so once a month. So whatever date that is, oftentimes we don't know what that date is when they report to the credit bureau. So when you make your payment, it goes in their system, whatever company you make your payment to, and then once a month, they're going to take all of their accounts, not just yours, not just the people in, Nebraska, not just the people on the East Coast, not just the people in the South. They're going to take all those payments and they're going to let the credit bureaus know, hey, this is what happened with all of these accounts. So that's kind of how it works. So long as you're not 30 days late, then you're perfectly fine. All right. So never be 30 days late. And if you find yourself short, you might not be able to make that payment or whatever, give them a call. Give whoever your creditor is a call. If you've called them before and they weren't so helpful, or you're one of these companies that are very strict on their policies, and you know they're not going to help, then maybe don't give them a call. But if it's a place that you've dealt with before, you found their customer service to be friendly and whatnot, give them a call, see what your options are, and let them know what's going on. Even bare minimum, if you can't make the payment and you're absolutely going to be over 30 days or whatever, then at least you can tell them about when you're going to make a payment. That'll stop them from calling your house, calling your job, calling your cell phone, and maybe even stop them sending letters to your home if you reach out and talk to them in the first place. All right. So that's the first thing. That's the first pillar of these 5 pillars of credit. So you've got that, your payment history, and that's 35% of your credit score. Now, next on the list, with the next weighting, if you will, is your credit utilization. So we talked about that a lot because this is one of the 5 pillars that you can impact the most. You can control how much money you spend on these credit cards. Your credit utilization can be used if you're looking at like credit cards and what your mortgage is and things of that nature. But as far as the credit bureaus are concerned, it's really talking about your revolving debt. So whatever revolving debt, which is credit cards, you have, it depends on how much the limits you have. That means, how much money do these 5 credit cards allow you to spend, and then your balance. How much money do you actually owe? So it's comparing the two within there. So you have your credit utilization, and I'm also coining this phrase as well. So you heard it here first, credit's 30-30 rule. So you got credit's 30-30 rule. And what I mean by that is within this credit utilization, it's 30% of what makes up your credit score. So remember, payment history was 35%. The second one with the most weighting is 30%, and that's your credit utilization. So that's the first 30 of credit's 30-30 rule. And then the next 30 of that is that the credit bureaus seem and appear to give you more points, if you will, on your credit score when you get to a credit utilization of 30% or less. So if you've got credit cards, and if you look at your credit cards and you've got $10,000 worth of limits, that's how much money you can spend, and your balances are $8,000 in total, then you have an 80% credit utilization. You take that 8,000, you divide it by 10,000, and that gives you 0.80000. So you've got an 80% credit utilization. That's high as far as the credit bureaus are concerned. So you're not getting as many quote unquote points to your credit score just because of that. So you start to pay off your credit cards, you start to pay those things down. And even sometimes if you're not even paying them down, but say your credit card company starts to give you increases. They give you increases on the limits that you have. So if you went from, $10,000 limit